Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Hey guys, welcome back to Paradigm Playbooks podcast. Today we're talking about the wonderful, I guess it's more of a continuation of subjects, but we're going to dig in a little bit into recruiting new employees and retaining them. I think it's well worth the conversation.
Yeah, I think, and maybe we spend too much time on recruiting and not enough on retention. But ultimately, I was thinking about this because in another life, we're in the process of recruiting a new sales rep. Mm-hmm. And the number one thing that will attract the best candidate is what the current people in that position are saying about it. So what you're doing to, how you're treating your employees and how you're retaining your current employees will in a large part determine what you're able to recruit, for a similar position or even within the same company. So,
which I think that, that goes back to the culture thing.
Yeah. So I've always said when I get done interviewing, I give them names of 3 employees and say, here, call these people. Now, in times of confidence in the overconfident world, I do that. But in tough times, sometimes you're not so anxious to say, hey, call so and so.
Yeah, and I think there's a component of that where if you have a false positive on the employee that you send them to, that could backfire. But again, I think it speaks to the company culture and what people are getting involved in and what they're getting into. I've always looked at recruiting, and small business recruiting is different than large corporate recruiting, right? The main part of small business is typically you're not going to be able to compete at the same income level that you can in corporate America for a similar job.
Yeah. So the base pay but the intangibles are what you're going to have to balance the books with.
Correct.
Is whatever the intangibles. I've always liked your approach to not doing your recruiting when you need somebody. Yeah. Which sounds counterintuitive, but I think the idea that your eyes are always open, you're kind of always recruiting, and you see somebody and I've seen you do this a number of times. Mm-hmm. Hey, that guy I need on my team, let's figure out where he fits in.
Yeah. And I've always spent, I would say 10% of all time recruiting in some fashion or another. And it's crazy because people look at recruiting as you go to the, what used to be the Monster job board or ZipRecruiter or one of these, and you're looking at resumes. I've always kind of done my recruiting through networking with different professionals, networking with different sports, athletics people. I'm always kind of ears open, eyes up on people around me or people around the people around me.
So in the corporate world, and I think there is a big difference between small business and corporate world. And, a small business can be anywhere up to 1,000 employees, Correct. But it's still small business. But in the big business and corporate world, we tend to use all those, job search companies, which claim to simplify the process, but they take the relationship out of the process. So you are going by, what's posted. I know in my corporate situation, we write up the job description, we get it all set, and then we post it. In the small business world, I don't think you necessarily post it, but you leak it, mm-hmm. and you just, you start talking internally. And you know what? I think we need to add a person. So if you do need it, you start leaking that out, and then see what comes to you. You're much better off if someone approaches you about a job before you're actually saying, here's the job. You're going to be hired as a nighttime short order cook at this salary.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of try to attract people to your culture.
And I've always tried to hire for the vision as opposed to hire for the current environment. I always, when I get to, let's say 80% capacity, I'm trying to find the next person. I don't ever want to get to max capacity in any particular field and not have someone in the hopper to come in and train, because that last 20%, when someone's getting to capacity, they should be training someone else to do at least a portion of that role.
I think what happens too often is you lose somebody at a good level, either to a competitor, to another opportunity, or to retirement, or whatever. You lose someone at a good level, you panic a little bit, you post and you hire. So by adding a person, you've decreased your total capability, which is a mistake. So when you get to 80% and it's, okay, who do we add that's going to take us to 110%, rather than, I think it's a mistake to try to replace the person you just lost. Don't fill that exact role.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I'll say in the recruiting side, right? You're in corporate hierarchies and structures. This is how we do it. We have our, let's say we have our VP level, then we have our director level, and down the line, more people report as you go down the line. So the VP level has, like, let's say 2 reports, and the director level has 3 departmental reports, and the department has the rank and file that report to them. In small business, as you grow and expand your operation, you have to retool that machine consistently. Mm-hmm. Are the reporting lines right? A lot of times what happens is the reporting tends to get put on the person that's most capable. And so I've got this person who's been with me for a long time. They know the whole business operation, and everybody's going to report to them. And so there's your highest manager. But is that person doing their highest output activity by having all those people report to that person? And are you structuring right? So if that person in that role leaves, right, now you have rank and file with no one else to kind of look to. So as you get increased amount of staff, you kind of reposition the role and the reporting environment that people are in. And I think it's a constant evolution. It's not a static environment, right? You hear a lot about restructuring in corporate America.
Yeah. And it's happening at the corporate level, but it happened in small business first, that you don't have an organizational hierarchy. You have an organizational matrix that people fit in. So there are not they're not direct lines of reporting in, we'll stick to our sports model. It's not that junior level coaches report to senior level coaches, report to a manager, report to a CEO, or that's not how it works. So you're more likely to manage a process than a specific group of people. And if that person is acting in a marketing or customer service function, then they're going to report in a different direction within the matrix.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to also consider how you're doing it and how you want to do it and what makes more sense, right? A lot of SWOT analysis. There's
like one too many S's.
Yeah, but you want to continuously kind of put that forward thinking vision into how you expand the operation. And there's a law of diminishing returns as you get bigger, because you have to focus on process efficiency at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times it's convenient to throw people at the problem, and it's not always the best outcome for the organization. Sometimes the process improvement should happen before the people acquisition happens. And process improvement should make the current rank and file more efficient and effective. And it'll actually help you identify where that next hire really needs to come in. as you go through kind of that retooling process. And it's not like, don't undo everything you've done. It can be small systematic changes over time that lead to the identifier of what you actually need. I'll give a great example in my own organization. We got to a scale and a complexity in multiple organizations interfacing, and I had a lot of operators, but I didn't have a lot of higher level coordination thinkers, right? Like, we're operating in this silo and we're operating in this silo and we're operating in this silo, but man, these silos are really interrelated. Why can't we operate in a more open format and open setting? And to do that, you often have to take a step backwards to create that new environment that is scalable to the next level. And so it's interesting. And we hired a lady that has that financial operational component background, which now goes, well, you're doing it. And I look at it's Six Sigma. It's all the 5S implementation. I was with a company at one point where they were using like 150 different screws to put together their widget. Mm-hmm. And they sorted it down to 3. And so all of a sudden they're only ordering 3 screws. You know that if you got a belt with 3 screws in it, you're using one of those 3 in any build you're making. And so very similar in the people and process environment. Now we're not, it's not screws, but it's CRMs, mm-hmm. it's email management systems, it's communication tools, it's text capabilities, it's all the different ways that you interact with clients. And so when you have your systems built right and your infrastructure built right, it oftentimes leads to who that next hire really needs to be.
There's a couple things. So when you're deciding, when you're evaluating a person, what's the number one things? I mean, you're talking about certain skills, certain personalities, culture, motivation, upside. So what's most important to you?
In my earlier career, it was pure mental capability, mm-hmm. and like the grit to just stick with it because small business can be tough at times, right? It's just, you got to grind, and it's not always easy to be in the grind. And so I needed people that could pull through and had the mental toughness to kind of deliver. Now, because we're a more refined group of individuals, I'm more focused on the cultural fit. Experience is huge. I would take experience over education any day of the week. Mm-hmm. Not that I'm discrediting education, because I'm in the education business. But experience in small and particularly experience in small business. Because what I've learned is, if you come from a widget factory where you were a piece of the manufacturing line, right? Mm-hmm. You did this one operation over and over and over and over and over and over and over. That's not small business. Small business, nobody gets to do that, right?
No, and small business, it's the side steps that you have to be ready for, and it's like, the coach that's great at coaching athletes, but we've got to expand our business and need to attract a different level, or we're going to add a sport or mm-hmm. things like that. So with that said, how do you feel about, trial periods or internships?
I like them a lot. But they're only right, in my opinion, for certain level of employee, meaning I'm not going to give my intern my highest output activity. And so if it's not an entry level fill, it's hard to say, okay, you can skip the first 3 years of your career where you're mm-hmm. learning how business operates. What I do typically do a probationary period. So before you,
so that's kind of like a trial. It's correct. A paid trial.
Paid, and your salary, and assuming you hit the requirements, 90 days, you're.
And that's a condition that's pre-discussed.
Yep.
So everybody knows coming in that, okay, so is there a fear in your head that, someone's going to turn on the charm for those first 90 days and that's not really who they are?
Yeah. There's always, I guess there's a fear. That half of my brain doesn't work. So I don't dabble in the pessimistic negativity. I dabble in the pure optimism, right? So I'm typically on that upside. What I'll tell you in the first 90 days is you will determine the discipline that a person has. No matter how well they hide it and shake it, it comes down to discipline. Are they on time? Are they up for anything? Are they asking what they can do? Are they asking how they can help? Are they completing jobs in under the expected time frame? Like all that stuff. I don't care who you are. You're not for 90 days. If you're faking it, it's coming out.
So, with that said, let's say they are on board. So you're talking to them. Do you have a favorite question that you're asking, like in an interview setting?
I don't typically get into the whimsical, fancy questions. I'm more direct. I want to know. I'm all about their tenure. Like, where are you in 10 years? Like, what is the deal? What are you trying to get to? Because I want to know if there's been any thought in the future. To me, that indicates that you're looking eyes up, that you're moving forward, that you want growth and opportunity, right? If you tell me, oh, I've never really thought about it. Okay. You never? Not once? Not even.
Well, what about the question like, why are you applying for this job?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that one. Another one I like is, what's your reaction if you don't get this job? And if someone says, well, I really wanted to be a cook here, but I think I'll go paint houses, then there's not a commitment to the, you don't have to have a specific commitment to the industry, but it helps to have an enjoyment of the atmosphere that you're working in. If you're in the, in the finance world and you say, yeah, God, I hate numbers, you're or if, it's like in the sports world, we're on our feet most of the time. So if someone's going to go from that to a desk job, then there's a question of really, is this really what they want? Or, was the pay right? Or,
and I think the hardest thing in recruiting is you don't often get to watch somebody in action. Right. And that's why I've always really liked the idea of I'm meeting people in a non-work setting to evaluate them. And that's why I like individual recruiting as opposed to going to a job board and sifting through resumes. I've been far more successful in the one-to-one recruit than I have with a stack of resumes.
Yeah, let's talk about resumes. What's good and bad about resumes?
If your resume isn't great, like, what are you doing? It's not hard to make yourself sound good.
But is it having any influence on you? So my thing with resumes always was, at least I get the spelling of their name right. So it's almost that nothing else in that resume. And now, I mean, like they can't put their age on the resume. In the corporate world, it's like, I don't want to get into identity politics, but it's, you can't, there's so many things that you can't put on there that you're going to have to find out in a different setting. So but the resumes are tough.
I mean, listen, let's be honest. If you graduated in 2001, I know how old you are.
Yeah.
If you've been in the working world for, you've got a 15-year tenure in working. Okay. You're around 35, maybe 40, right? Like there's all that to me is just a bunch of garbage. And I don't have.
So what is disturbing to you on, what do you see on resumes that would make you think, it's like,
well, first of all, I don't want to know anything other than your professional world. Like,
no, but so it's going to tell you, where they were last, where they started, where they went to college. Basically, that's what you're getting.
Yep.
And then some, very highfalutin mission statement of how you're going to change the world. Yep. And at some point,
it's more important.
A lot of the resumes come out sounding like that closing speech at Miss America. It's like it's a little bit scary.
The more important piece to me is a cover letter.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll tell you why. And I don't even want a formal cover letter. I want an email I want some type of correspondence that says to me, hey, number one, I want this. Here's why I want it. Here's why I think it'd be great for it. And I want to know that you can write. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want your pre-scripted, pre-written cover letter. I want a letter to me. And
pretty much everybody's outsourcing resumes anyway.
Correct.
You know, there's
ghostwriters. Go on to, I'm sure in Word, there's a template for resumes. I mean, resumes just aren't hard. Resumes to me are a conversation starter. Yeah. So, hey, you went here. What was your experience? Oh, you did this. Why'd you go? Mm-hmm. Why'd you jump from this company? Biggest question is why people left other employment opportunities. And I think there's people always or they think that they can pull the wool over your eyes essentially on why they left a job or what tell it how it is. Mm-hmm. It was a toxic work environment. I didn't like it. I learned a lot there, but it was my
most of the time when people leave, it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
It's
or they were fired,
which is a personal thing.
Yeah.
You're not doing your job. That's personal to me.
Correct.
But one of the things that you get with resumes is references. Mm-hmm. Do you call them?
Yes.
What do you expect?
Nothing.
Okay, good. Okay, so it's like if Uncle Henry's one of the references, you assume that his name wouldn't be on there if he didn't like the person.
Correct. So. Nobody gives you a reference of a bad person. Now, I will say that just tying back into the other side, as an employer, if someone leaves or someone goes, depending on how they exited, I will be very candid with a person calling to verify.
But if they leave under bad terms, they're most likely not going to use you as a reference. So, the other thing that I like to find out, and maybe this is more in the corporate world than in the small business sports world, is what does the applicant or the interested party know about me?
Yeah,
it's like. Have they done any reference? I mean, if they come in and say, "Hey, I really want to work for Paradigm Financial," and what do you guys do? Mm-hmm. I mean, you expect at some level they've done some research on you.
And to me, I want the question. I don't want that question. The question I want is, "Hey, I was doing some research. You guys seem like you're in a lot of things. Like, what's the big focus? What's the big picture?" I want someone to actually, beyond just, taking an overview of my website, I want them to dig in and figure out what they can find, right? And ask those questions.
And if they're asking about growth opportunities, I think that's a good thing, because in the we've talked about this on other podcasts. But if you're not growing, you're dying. So you want people and if you're going to grow as a company, then everybody's got to grow with you.
Yep.
So you want people that are interested in growth.
Yeah. So I'm usually, I would say if I want the candidate in the second or third interview, and we do a couple of rounds and we do different. So we have a blind interview that we do. So I'll do an interview, John will do an interview, and Matt will do an interview. And we will replace a partner with a department head. If they're going to work directly for that person, we'll have the department head and two partners interview. And then we come together. Nobody shares notes. Nobody does anything. We come together and we talk about that individual so that there's no bias going into it. If I like a candidate, I explain to them what small business is. And to me, small business is upward mobility for everybody involved, as long as the vision at the leadership level is there. And so, until you get to, 100 employees, I would say, like, upward mobility, you're in at ground level, right? If you're under 10, even under 20, like, everybody very well. I would say once you get to 100 people, like, maybe the CEO doesn't know everybody like real well.
Well, in a lot of the sports businesses that we deal with on a daily basis, we're talking companies that have from 10 to 40 employees. I mean, they're really small businesses. So the value of what they call the Swiss Army knife is incredible, and your willingness. And so I don't know, how do you, like in our business, we have 15 people that work at Grand Slam. Nobody is above or below any one activity because push comes to shove, somebody's got to step in.
Yeah.
So I, as the owner, will host a birthday party or clean the bathroom or, shovel the driveway. So how do you judge that before that? I mean, is there a way to judge that?
I do like to see variety in a resume, the variety of experiences, variety of pursuits. But we have a saying here: everybody takes out the trash.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's like, a Swiss Army knife.
Like there's nobody coming to your desk to empty your trash. There's a garbage can outside on Fridays. Take your trash out and put it in the garbage can. Now we'll clean the bathrooms. We'll have a company come in and clean the bathrooms. I don't expect anybody to be washing toilets necessarily, but if we didn't have that company, hey, if it offends you, clean it.
Yeah. Well, I think that in general, if we want to kind of wrap up around recruitment, one most important thing is eyes open before you have an area of need.
Yeah.
And then look for people that you'd want in your organization more so than one that fits a specific role. Now, if you need an accountant, you can't hire a carpenter. I mean, and that doesn't work. But I think you have to keep your eyes open for people and then find ways to fit it. One last question before we wrap this up is how I've always kept a close eye on my competitors. Is that, do you have a plus or minus in hiring from a competitor?
Oh, geez. At different times, I need someone that is trained and ready to go. So there's a low barrier to entry to performance. But in that same catch-22, they come in with all the habits of someone else and with all the positives of a trained person. There's the negatives of being trained in a different way. And so I don't dislike it, but as a kind of the consummate coach, as I consider myself, my ego comes in play a little bit where I want people trained my way. And I want them to do things a certain way. And I can be pretty persnickety about different components of the business. So, if it's a growing position, meaning it's not a real parallel move, but it's a advancement, I'm okay with previous training being there.
Yeah. So in our small sports business, what we try to watch is competitors, customers, and pipeline. And so we have many good employees that started out as customers. You may have been one of them, although you were a competitor and a customer before you were
I was a customer as a kid. I was a customer for a long time, and then coached at a competitive environment, and then came to you guys.
Yeah. So, and I think that's happened right now. We have a coach that had been a customer for about 4 years, bringing his son in for lessons, and sat intently watching our coaches over and over again. He's a local school teacher and wanted a side hustle. Has become a tremendous coach. But there, as a customer, he learned it's like he wouldn't have applied for that job if he said, I don't like the way they do it. They're not doing this or that.
Yeah, I mean, and bring it full circle. My first and most valuable employee managed your facility.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I mean,
so that's your networking approach.
And my second, my probably second most valuable employee right now, was a client. Two of them were clients.
Right. So I think, don't underestimate the networking and the eyes open side of it.
And I think the other thing that is a very real opportunity for a lot of small businesses are moms and or dads that were raising families, took a step back from what was probably a really progressive career, meaning they were doing well, they were going places, but they made the decision, hey, we're not going to pay for daycare. One of us is going to stay home. And that person wants to reacclimate, but they don't want to do it in a highly competitive environment in corporate America. So they can be very good resources to step in and become like incredibly valuable to an organization. And it gives them what they're looking for is different than what someone who's been climbing the ladder is looking for. When someone is coming back into the job market, male, female, don't care, older, younger, doesn't matter to me. When they're coming back in, they're looking for satisfaction. They want to know that they're making a difference. They don't just want to get back on the wheel and try and climb and climb and climb. They want to get in, they want to have impact, they want to be valued, and they want some freedom. And I think one of our best recruiting tools is we've been pretty good at giving people some space. Like, hey, all right, yeah, we got it. We're not going to, I'm not measuring your time clock. Yeah. Right.
Well, in the sports business, we have the advantage of one, I call it, sports business is pretty much a second shift company because we operate in that timeline of second shift. But we also are dominated by part-time workers. So we have a ton of 20-hour people, which is good because we can hire and exist on a level of passion. Now, the good news in the sports world, it also pays pretty well. So, we've got a nice little business that pays well, allows you to work towards your passion. And, it's a fun business to be in. So I think recruitment's a little bit easier for us. And, you know how it is. We've got people that haven't worked for us for 15 years and we put a call out and need someone to cover a shift. And we get some guy who's now working as an attorney for a big corporation and says, yeah, I'll sell popcorn for a while.
Why not?
Yeah. Anyway,
fantastic.
It's all good stuff.
All right. That's our time for today, guys. That's Paradigm Playbook. Thanks for listening.
Make it a great week.